You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Actually, tomorrow we're going to school tomorrow.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The RTM will be convened on Wednesday, February 8th, 2023 at 8 p.m. at Branford Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, to consider and act upon the following matters. Will everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1, roll call.
Good evening. I will call the following RTM representatives for tonight's attendance. Alphone.
Here.
Amore. Absent. Anderson.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
She's on Zoom.
Black.
Here.
Bonenberger.
Here.
Brooks.
Present.
Conklin.
Here.
Everson.
Here.
Erlanger.
Here.
Flanagan.
Here.
Greenberg.
Absent.
Absent.
So far.
Healy.
Here.
Henschel.
Here.
Hines.
Here.
Ingraham.
Here.
Kelly. Absent. Leach is present. Maresca.
Here.
Preet.
Here.
Ricchio.
Present.
Shrestha.
You just got it. Good timing.
Thank you.
Sires.
Present.
Stepanik. Absent.
Absent.
Sullivan.
Here.
Torelli. Absent. Toohill.
Here.
Verderam.
Here.
Witkowski.
Absent.
And Wells.
Here.
Okay, and for ex officios, we have Selectman Higgins and Town Clerk Arpin.
Okay, good. Item number 2, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Represented by Representative Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Maresca. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are accepted as without exception. Okay, item 3, reception of communications, reports of committees and citizens petitions. I have a few here. I have a email from Representative Everson. Dear Mr. Moderator, attaches a nonpartisan letter of support created at the request of Ed, Zach, and other veterans in Branford who asked at the RTM if they would support proposed state legislation, Senate Bill number 636, an act concerning veterans' graves. It will be circulated for signatures at the meeting and a copy provided to the clerk to be included in the record. It will also be sent to the state capitol to be indicated in the record. The letter of support is attached for you to read as well under communications. And I just I'll read the letter of support itself. As an elected representatives of the Branford Representative Town Meeting, we write in support of Senate Bill 636, an act concerning upkeep of the veterans' graves. In Branford alone, there are several thousand graves belonging to those who served and proudly defended our country. SB 636 will create a process that does not currently exist. It will be put in place and a mechanism for a complaint to be made and heard during the upcoming upkeep of the cemeteries where veterans are buried, involving both the Department of Consumer Protection and the Department of Veterans Affairs. This bill will allow us and future generations to ensure these graves are maintained with the reverence and dignity that all veterans deserve in their final resting place. And I believe everybody signed that requisition. If anybody has not signed it? Okay,
One, two.
right. And you, Tracy, you have that? You have
Yes,
that?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll give you that.
Okay.
I do have a letter from Mr. Jerry Shaw, 188 Thimble Island Road, regarding the February 8th, 2023 Representative Town Meeting. Agenda item number 4, to consider an appropriate review, Chapter 16, Article 2, Tree Warden and Public Tree Protection. To the RTM, I applaud the work of the Rules and Ordinance Committee, and especially Member Peter Henschel from the 2nd District, and fully support adoption of a final revised town ordinance with addition to many clarifications, reasserts tree warden compliance with the state statutes, and requires consultation with a professional arborist. The RNO revised tree warden legislation has addressed this issue by requiring the state tree warden training credentials to be part of the public record, as seen below by state statute to support this. Each tree warden shall maintain a record of the compliance of the coursework required pursuant to Section A of the section, and upon request furnish such records to the commissioner of the DEP or commissioner designate and the chief elected official of the municipality and appointed such tree warden. The question remains, will timely tree warden management measures be instituted to mitigate the possibility of another fatal tree accident at Branford Roads, as occurred on September 6th, 2022. And you have that one,
Yeah.
I have a letter from Representative Judith Barron, Executive Director of the Community Dining Room. Dear Mr. Moderator, from now until February 15th, Bare Necessities, a nonprofit that assists diaper banks, is hosting a law enforcement diaper drive across the shoreline to help diaper banks stock up. The Branford Diaper Bank is part of the community dining room, and all donations of diapers and wipes dropped off at the Branford Police Department will go directly to the community dining room for Branford Diaper Bank. The Branford Diaper Bank is open to all Branford residents, and there is no income guidelines. All those in need should qualify for this service. To register, Branford residents can call the Branford Early Learning Center. Diapers are distributed at the community dining room for registered participants the second Tuesday evening of every month. Currently, this program is serving over 60 Branford families in need, and we hope to be able to fill the lobby of the Branford Police Department so we can continue to help those families and more. 1 out of 3 families struggle to be able to provide diapers to their babies. The Branford Diaper Bank is a self-sustaining program. Donations from the community help make this a big impact for those who are in need. The community dining room is thankful for all the support and donations given, and wants to remind the community that even after the diaper drive ends on the 15th, diaper donations will always be welcome. And this is sincerely Judith Barron, Executive Director of the Community Dining Room. And you have that one. I have a letter from the Chairman of the Board of Finance, attention Dennis Flanagan, Moderator. At a meeting of the Board of Finance held on January 30th, 2023, the following resolution was adopted. Resolve that the resolution entitled, a resolution amending resolution appropriation of $2,750,000 for Main Street Road and related improvements and authorizing the issue of $2,750,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriations, and pending issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose to increase the scope of the project and increase the appropriation and bond authorization therein by an additional $5,550,000 is hereby adopted and recommended approval by the RTM. I have another letter from Chairman Mooney, the Board of Finance, attention Dennis Flanagan. At the meeting of the Board of Finance held on January 30th, 2023, the following resolution was adopted. Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing an Appropriation of $325,000 for the Police Headquarters Renovation Project and the financing of said appropriations by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town and notes in anticipation of such bonds, in an amount not to exceed $325,000 thereof, it is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the representative town meeting. We have a letter here from Trista Merlisi, Executive Secretary to the First Selectman. At the Board of Finance meeting held on February 1, 2023, the board approved the appointment of James P. Cosgrove to fill a vacancy left by Judith Amori to the Greater New Haven Transit District, term to expire December 31st, 2023. The district bylaws state that the directors and alternates shall be appointed by the chief executives or the Board of Selectmen of the municipality with the approval of the legislative body. Please place this appointment on the next agenda of the RTM for legislative approval. Thank you for your considerations, and I send that to Administrative Services. I have another letter from Tristan Malisi also, from James Cosgrove. At the Board of Selectmen meeting held on February 1, 2023, the board approved a recommendation by the Solid Waste Management Commission to approve the attached resolution to continue Branford's participation in the Hazard Waste Central Program for an additional 3 years. Please place this item on your next agenda for the RTM for approval. I will send this to Public Services. And these two pieces of information, since I'm on the Veterans Advisory Committee, Mr. Adrian Bonenberger, if I'm saying that, at the Board of Selectmen's meeting held on February 1, 2023, the board unanimously reappointed you to serve on the Veterans Advisory Committee. Your term will expire on January 31st, 2027. And I'm sure you got a copy of that.
I did.
Welcome on board. And
But there's more.
from the Board of Selectmen, a meeting was held on February 1st, also 2023. The board unanimously reappointed you to serve for the Veterans Advisory Committee, Carolyn Sires. Your term will expire January 31st, 2027. Welcome, Carolyn. And I think you got everything.
I think so.
Okay, yeah. What you
All these
did,
are mine.
yeah, what you didn't, you should have been forwarded.
Are those?
Yeah, and then what you,
Thank
okay?
you. Do you want these back? Or?
No, no. All right, moving on to item 4. To consider and if appropriate, review Tree Warden Ordinance Charter 16, Article 11 of the Town Code. Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Arno met on this on the 17th and the 28th. We did come up with what we felt was our final version. Went to the town attorney. He has some suggestions for changes. Nothing huge, but enough that I would feel comfortable putting them forward without the committee taking a chop at it, having a chance to meet with Mr. Anaskovich and understand where he's coming from. So at this point, I will ask that this matter be re-referred. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to have this item
I need a
re-referred.
second.
Second it.
I believe the committee met on this, you don't need a second.
That was the committee voted differently, though, correct?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, didn't the committee vote differently on that item?
Point of order, out of committee, the vote was to accept it. So the committee report should be that we were going to bring it to, with a unanimous vote to present it to the full RTM. You're going to amend it to re-refer. That would be the committee report and a subsequent vote.
Okay, the committee, at least I think in the minutes that I wrote up, I've chopped, was that it was our final version, subject to town attorney review. As we should know, our rules require any ordinance to be reviewed by the town attorney, and then we need to get 5 days again. You know, there were so if you want to, I'll put forward the committee's motion in light of the town attorney, you know, for the clerk, if you want to.
I've already voted.
Oh, we already voted on the whole
Well,
thing?
no.
We could.
So your motion is you're amending, your motion is to
Okay.
re-refer, and it's been seconded,
The
I believe,
amendment.
by
Yeah, it's been
Representative Sullivan.
seconded. I mean, I'm
Any
happy to
discussion?
have that considered an
No,
amendment to
no,
the
that's
committee
fine.
report.
So the motion is to
The motion is to re-refer.
seconded by Representative Sullivan.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is re-referred. Item number 5, to consider and appropriate, adopt a policy for virtual meetings into the town hall meeting rooms. Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, we discussed this on the 17th and the 28th. Didn't have a whole lot of time. Interestingly, the 28th was a virtual meeting. I'm sure that made Representative Sullivan happy. But anyway, we voted unanimously to re-refer this matter, so I put that in the form of a motion.
Any discussion on the motion to re-refer this item? Hearing none, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item is re-referred. Moving on to item 6, to consider and approve PZ 22-5-2, two-lot subdivisions and coastal site plan at 125 Thimble Islands Road. Representative Verderame.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We all received a letter on this. That was included in the documents posted on the agenda for tonight, and the assistant town planner presented this to us at admin services last night. Simply, the action we are taking is to accept the donation of the open space land and conservation easement at 125 Thimble Island Road to allow the subdivision to be finalized. This passed committee with 6 yeas and 1 abstention, and I move its favorable passage.
Motion on the floor to approve this. Any discussion on the motion? Representative Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through a point of clarification first, and then I'd like to make some comments to Chairwoman. This motion action is for us to accept the conservation easement, but the larger project is to subdivide a parcel to build on. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Moderator, that's correct.
Thank you. So I actually rise in opposition to this motion. Looking at where this is being built, we're basically approving, and I know that this should have been argued in front of Planning and Zoning, but this is where I get to say something. So we're basically approving additional development and building, directly upgrading of a salt marsh and taking a small conservation easement as part of the deal. This is an era of climate change, and coastal retreat is often a strategy, and yet this project actually is coastal development. There's tens of millions of dollars being spent in Connecticut on resiliency projects, and I just can't support the taking of this, or the acceptance of this easement, since it's connected to additional development so close to the salt marsh. I think it sets a bad precedent for approving bad developments in our town, and I'd encourage my colleagues to vote against this as well. Thank you.
Anybody else? Representative Everson? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I abstained from the vote during admin services last night, and have decided not to vote in favor of this. I sit on the Coastal Vulnerability Working Group as well as the RTM, and as Representative Sullivan said, this is our opportunity to say something. When I took a closer look at this map today, the elevation is 11 feet above sea level. Sea level is projected to rise by 2050, 20 inches. So I'm sure in today's whatever regulations they had to go through, they could approve this. I'm not sure it has the foresight. I'm not sure this is the right place. If you look on Circa's storm surge map projections, this area is going to be mostly underwater. So they have the approval to build this, but I have to stand on principle here and not support it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Representative Henschel?
Yes. I was concerned about this for several reasons, and certainly from the point of view of a PCC action, I was not in favor of it for multiple reasons, most of which Chris and Tracy have mentioned. But I also was concerned about it because the subject subdivision has both a storm sewer right-of-way that crosses it and a right-of-way along the railroad tracks that is being used to access the driveway access into this proposed project. And I was concerned about that from the point of view of the Stony Creek Association and some of their concerns with both the functioning of that storm line, the need for some repairs on it, and also the possible use of that same right-of-way for emergency access out of Sony Creek in the future, especially if we do see sea level rise to the point projected. I did meet with the town engineer and the assistant town planner on both of those two specific concerns, and my concerns were put to rest from the point of view of this action that we're taking not impacting negatively on either one of those two concerns. So from the point of view of my district that I represent, I'm going to support the action because it is in fact a requirement of the PZC application. Just as an aside, the PZC has agreed with the coastal group to set up a subgroup to study possible changes to both regulations and the town ordinances that might impact on this type of a project. As you know, and Chris and Tracy have said, in some ways the PZC's hands are tied in terms of what they approve. They have to approve it according to the current regulations. Our feeling is that those are insufficient in the face of what we view as future projections, and they need to be changed. So there may be some changes that might become before the RTM in the next year or two out of that joint committee action.
Anyone else wishing from the RTM wishing to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I just want to say that it would be difficult for me to vote in favor of building on any salt marsh area, or, I mean, in Branford as it is, we have enough trouble with flooding of properties that have already been built. So I agree with all the comments that have been made here.
Representative Henschel?
Again, just a clarification, if you look at the actual subdivision proposal, which does locate a residence on it, the residence itself is not, and its adjacent lawns and septic system, et cetera, is above the floodplain, is out of the marsh. So it's part of the property that's in the marsh, but the actual proposed building is not. Again, in the future, it may be subject to flooding based on projections of sea level rise, but currently it's not.
Any Representative Verderame?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just want to make a point of clarification for this body on what exactly we are voting on. We are not voting on building the subdivision. All of these comments were pertinent to the P&Z discussion. They're not really pertinent here. What we are voting on is what I explained before, which is the exception of the donation of open space, which is a wonderful thing for the town of Branford to gain more open space, and the conservation easement to allow the subdivision. That's what we're voting on. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak from the RTM? Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. At the Administrative Service meeting last night, it was very plainly and clearly explained to all present by the Assistant Town Planner as to what's going on and what this is all about. I don't see him here tonight, but he explained it all to us. So.
Anyone else?
Representative Greenberg joined us at 8:23.
Representative Greenberg, you have
Could I make a
Yeah,
further
Representative
comment?
Henderson, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. While that is what is before us, this acceptance of the open space, it's enabling this development to go forward. And for that reason, it was agreed to.
Anyone else?
It was a condition of the approval from the Planning and Zoning.
Representative Black?
Yeah, I mean, we should be aware of this from Parkside, et cetera. It's a condition. If the town doesn't accept it, it's going forward. The only difference will be we don't get the land. It's the P&Z had said, according to their regs, et cetera, they want this deeded property. If we say no, the condition has to go away because we've rejected the condition. So, that's where we are. It doesn't stop the building in any way. it just allows us to comply with the P&Z and gain a little open space. You know, I share people's concerns, you know, near my old house in Mill Plain Road, there's a huge building, I think it's an 830G project, being built practically in the river. It's an ecological disaster. But, you know, that's something to bring up at the legislature, where often those environmental concerns go away under 830G and in our own zoning regs if we're going to revamp them. But right now, the only thing before this is acceptance of open space. If we don't accept it, the project will still go forward. The condition will have to be released. They've made the offer. They've complied with their half of the condition. We need to comply with our half, or if we don't, then the condition has to go away, because they've complied with their obligation under the planning law. Thank you.
Anyone else from the Representative Riccio?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to Representative Everson, I want to understand, Tracy, what are your concerns, again, for this project? For
My
approving
concerns
this?
are the location and that it was approved. And while I recognize that that is not what is before us on principle, I'm going to be voting against this.
But what are your concerns? Based on what?
The sea level, the elevation is 11 feet. It's adjacent to a velocity flood zone in addition to an AE flood zone, which means when there are storms, the water rises, and this property could and probably will be eventually flooded.
Eventually flooded by who's saying that?
It's
I
based
just want to
on,
understand, that's why. 'Cause
it's based on science that is documented and is put forward by the state of Connecticut that projects sea level to rise by 20 inches by 2050.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the past year, this Republican has been working on a project regarding climate risk. And what I've learned over the past year, the folks that talk about climate change is based on these future models that we don't know how those models were created. It's sometime down the road, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, we don't know. It's a model, it's a prediction. However, what I've learned, there's actually a database that the government has provided that was developed by FEMA that can do a climate risk assessment on every single property in the country based on 18 different hazards like flood. A suggestion to the town and to this body, when we start making decisions and having discussions about decisions, and I can't believe here we are, we have a donation that someone wants to give some land, and the Dems don't want that. I'm like scratching my head, I'm saying, there's something wrong here. My point is this. Maybe as a body, as for the town, we need to start evaluating our climate risk and start making decisions based on current information, based on historical information that's real, that we can do a risk assessment on properties today based on real data. And rather than having these decisions made strictly on the future based on some scientific model that no one probably understands of how they came up with it. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I would be concerned. But I'm just trying to make a point here, that maybe we should, when we have these type of discussions, maybe evaluate those decisions a little bit differently. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else from the RTM? You all set? Anybody else? No? Anybody from the public? No? All right, the motion before this is to approve this lot subdivision.
Great speech.
We're accepting the property. We're not approving a lot subdivision.
Right, that's
We're
what the,
accepting
that's what the way it's worded on the call. We understand that. So let's say, all those in favor, of a show of hands?
I'm going to be in favor.
Okay, opposed? We got Everson, Sullivan. The motion passes. Moving on to item 7, to consider and if appropriate, adjust the town of Branford's ordinance on noise and how it addresses commercial pickup of sanitation. Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We met on this on the 17th of January, and the unanimous vote of the committee was that this body take no action. At this point, one of the concerns in the letter was about nighttime pickup that's already covered under some pretty stringent noise levels, and plus, frankly, a lot of the committee members felt we'd rather have those big trucks going around at night when there's less traffic rather than clogging things up when school kids are out on the street. But as it is, I don't think there was any need to modify the ordinance, so the unanimous vote was to take no action. I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to take no action on this item. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, this item will be removed from the call. Moving on to item 8, to consider and appropriate approve the following transfer from the Register of Voters from contingency $57,612 to other supplies $7,547 to election workers $45,925 to meal supplies $174 to repairs and maintenance $3,211 to overtime $370 to travel $385 for a total of $57,612. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. Yes, Ways and Means met last Wednesday, February the 1st, and we heard this, as most of you know. The Register of Voters comes to us after the fact, telling us what they spent basically at election time. And going through committee, this passed 4-0 with 1 abstention. And I put its passage in a favorable way before this committee. Thank you, sir.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Moving on to item 9, to consider and appropriate approve.
Conklin abstained.
Don, okay.
What?
Representative Conklin.
He's the deputy registrar, so
He abstained.
Yeah. Item number 9, to consider and appropriate approve the following transfer requests from Human Services. From property liability, $3,436. From other purchase services, $1,000 for a total of $4,436. To furniture and fixtures, $3,436. And to uniforms and clothing, $1,000 for a total of $4,436. Representative Verderam.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We heard this last night. This is a very simple intra-year, intra-budget transfer. It passed committee unanimously, and I move its favorable passage here tonight.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item passes. Moving on to item 10, to consider and appropriate approve the following transfer and resolution for Open Space Fund. From Open Space Fund transfer, increase appropriations from fund balance $60,000 to transfer out 700 fund $760,000. From capital fund appropriation increase transfer in by $60,000, and to increase parks and open space repairs and improvements by $60,000. Resolved that the RTM approves an increase in the total appropriation for fiscal year 2022-23 open space fund for budgets from $63,051 to $123,051. The additional appropriation will be funded from the open space fund balance and to be used to fund the Pine Gutter Brook restoration project. Open space transfer request, this is another portion of it, from open other supplies, $3,000, and from capital outlay, $1,500, to purchase service and repair maintenance, $4,500. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, yes, Ways and Means met last Wednesday to discuss this matter. You see two parts before you, as you just read. I'll start with the latter as far as it's simple interdepartment transfer. The first part of it being the bigger part of it, as you see. Basically, this project, again, what we're attempting to do is slow down the speed of which the river is picking up sediment and dropping it down to eventually into the supply pond. Currently, right now, from where it's starting, from where it's coming down, it's picking up glass, it's picking up speed, it's picking up sediment, and it's just dropping it all along. Many of you have already read the reports, saw some of the pictures, even hopefully have taken the hike along with Mr. Shanahan. And we get to see as far as one of the earlier dumping areas where it settles and sits. We have to clean that out every year or two at a cost of $6,000 to $7,000. So hence what this project is going to do is going to help create 10 or 11 natural type of dams. These dams will slow down the water, stop the erosion from the banks, also start some of the sediment depositing back before, hence reinforcing some of that dam work. Again, slowing down not just the water, but the debris, because it's coming through some drop-off, hazardous glass and everything that comes through and gets deposited that way. There are also going to be hundreds of little stake holes put in with rebar, and we're going to be sticking in different trees from dogwood and willow that are going to go in that area. Also, with its root system, will then help hold back any more further erosion, and it's a nice project for us. It's a good, solid account. It went through our committee. It passed 5-0, and I'd like it seen passed here before us tonight, and I put that in the form of the motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this resolution. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I rise in support of this project. I think it's a great thing to do to try to reduce the erosion in Pine Gutter Brook. I'm actually locally invested because the stream's directly behind my house on Pine Hollow Road. So I know that those soils are highly erodible. And I think that, the series of check dams, or maybe they can be called like forebays to try to drop that sediment velocity out, is great. The question that I have is for this project is if ARPA dollars were actually considered for this, because water infrastructure is actually one of the specially eligible uses for ARPA funds called out in guidance from the final rule, including anything that would be funded under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund or Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And further in guidance, it talks about projects pursuant to implementation of non-point source pollution management programs authorized under the Clean Water Act, watershed projects meeting criteria set forth in the Clean Water Act. I think this project meets those criteria, and as I've been told recently, we have to encumber our ARPA funds by 2024, and this seems an opportunity to do that without spending funds from our fund balance to accomplish the project. So while I'm in favor of the project, I just think that we could use the funds from ARPA and be a little bit more beneficial for the town in the long haul. Thank you.
Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to Representative Sullivan. I did address that question to the Finance Director. He did say that, yes, we could have used ARPA, but this is the Open Space Fund. It's also appropriate for this fund, and I think he has other plans for some of the ARPA funds in the upcoming budget. Unfortunately, we don't make those decisions, and after it, I thought of going down to the Board of Finance to make that point. I doubt it would have changed anything. It's not a huge amount either way in the relative scheme of things. But yeah, Personally, I would have preferred to use expiring money that's sort of somebody else's money rather than our money that we can continue forward. But as you know, by the time it comes to the RTM, things are pretty fixed. I know Mr. Shanahan, I'm sure, wants to get this going for the construction season coming up. You know, we've got mud season, good time to plant trees, etc. Mr. Finch did comment that, you know, when he heard that Pine Gutter Brook was still a problem, he said, "Damn it."
Representative Everson?
Oh, he lost privilege.
All right, Representative Everson first, and then Representative Toohill.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to thank Richard Shanahan for the amount of work that he does as a volunteer with this town. This is a tremendous amount of work. He actually led a group of us to show us exactly where this is and what the situation is, and that's greatly appreciated, and I just want to recognize your volunteer service to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to share what Representative Everson said about Richard Shanahan. He's an outstanding volunteer. He's put his heart into this. He's really gone overboard, you know, and he's really trying to tackle this problem. We've had this problem, you know, for many, many years. I mean, we have tried, you know, to rectify it in the past. There have been studies done. We have done, you know, tried different things, and so we're trying something else now. And I also want to recognize his very good work. He spent a lot of time also working around Lake Saltonstall, because there was a problem with all the, you know, the problem there with, you know, the motorbikes and everything, and so he also worked on that. So thanks a lot. And as far as what Representatives Black and Sullivan said, I do share the sentiments that it should come out of ARPA. Thank you.
Selectman Cosgrove?
Just quickly address comments regarding the use of whether this should have been an ARPA project or not. I mean, certainly, yes, it could have been. I think the thought was when Rich came in and had this project that he wanted to do right away, we supported the fact that it should be done this year, looking at where the funds are. We do have a very healthy balance in the open space fund, and keep in mind those dollars are accumulated through lease and royalties from the quarry, also some other, you know, in lieu of you know, fees that are brought in. So those are, and we have, I think it was just over $800-some-thousand in that account. So when it came down to decide where to fund this, I think this is the appropriate, from the open space fund, is the appropriate place to take these dollars. Because as we know, there's a number of projects that we want to undertake, and not all of those other projects have a fund we could tap to utilize. So I think we want to utilize those ARPA dollars that don't have other funding sources.
Okay. Representative Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Not to get off track here, but each time that I hear this about the ARPA funds, a dollar is a dollar. It's coming from my federal tax dollars or it's coming from my local tax dollars. It's still coming from my tax dollars. It's ARPA funds. It's the open space fund. It's my tax. It's everybody else's tax dollars.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to it? Anybody from the public? No? Okay, I guess we're ready to vote on this. All those in favor of this resolution for the open space signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item passes. Moving on to item number 11, to consider and act upon the following proposed resolution. A resolution amending a resolution appropriating $2,750,000 for Main Street Road and related improvements and authorizing the issuance of $2,750,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose to increase the scope of the project and increase the appropriation and bond authorization therein by an additional $5,550,000. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Apparently, I'm to ask that we waive the full reading of the resolution.
Motion on the floor to waive the full reading of the resolution. Is there a second?
Peter did.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
Vernon?
Attorney next to me.
All right, motion on the floor. Motion on the floor to waive the reading of 441, waive the reading of the full resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now you got it.
No buttons.
Thank you. All right, so again, last Wednesday, yes, we heard this as well. This again, it just went through committee. We heard the resolution. Everybody was for it. It passed 5-0. The town, our responsibility is going to be the $650,000 for the design work. Again, it passed 5-0, and I put its passage in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this resolution. Is there any discussion on this? Representative Toohill?
Microphone, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is truly a great event for the downtown Branford. The scope of this project was just increased from, the way it stands now, the whole Main Street area, from Laurel Street all the way down to Chestnut, is going to be totally revitalized. Now, the last time the center was revitalized was when Judy Gott was first selectman for 12 years, back in the 1980s up to the 90s. So this is, you can see this really as revitalization of downtown Branford, Chapter 2. And of course, the Green Project 2 was also approved by this body, I don't know, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. So the whole downtown, including the green, is going to be all fixed up. It's going to be great. It's the pavers we're talking about, new walks, new lighting. You know, it's just going to be great. So that's the reason for the increase. But it's not paid by the town. The only cost to the town is $650,000 for the architect plans for it. The rest of it, the resolution tonight for $550,000, that's not paid by the town. So everybody vote for it. Thanks.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Representative Everson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just have a question about the resolution itself, and I've read the entire full text of the resolution. And what other committees and even the Board of Finance did was note in their agendas that the design portion of this funding would go from $250,000 to $650,000. And it's not noted here on our agenda. And I think it's an important clarification to make, because the public may not be aware that part of what we are doing is also authorizing an appropriation for the $650,000 for the design portion. That being said, we're leveraging that for what will be reimbursed of over an $8 million project through the state of Connecticut. So I think that's an important clarification to make. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the RTM? Representative Brooks?
Through you, Mr. Moderator. Representative Toohill, so the town isn't paying for this improvement. Can you tell me who is?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Representative Brooks. My understanding, it's coming from the LoCIP funding, which is, it's from the federal government. It comes into the state and it goes to the, to the local group, right, which, what's it called? Oh, yeah, COG, right, that's COG, right. COG, C-O-G-G, the Council of the Regional Governments. They approve all the U.S. projects, so, okay, sir?
So I would just like to clarify, that would be the Biden administration, a Democratic administration, helping the town of Branford. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
I think it's state money, so
Thank you.
A Democratic governor helping the town out. Thank you.
By raising my taxes.
It actually goes from the 2019 appropriation.
All right. Anyone else from the RTM wish to speak to this? Representative Henschel?
Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Moderator, to First Selectman. So if we're just approving basically the SCROG grant funding portion of this, where are we drawing the roughly 600K of engineering fees that are apparently not accounted for in that? Is that going to be an appropriation?
No, it's an 8.3, so, just to clarify, the COG funding, it's lot SIP program, actually. There is a low SIP and then there's lot SIP. So this is a lot SIP program. We are required to cover the design costs, which are, I believe they're encumbered in this overall appropriation. And then construction is covered, all the construction costs are covered through the program. So it's an overall $8.3 million project. Of that, there's the design portion and the construction. Design is covered through the town. The state reimbursed the town for all eligible construction costs.
So you're saying that of the 800 and whatever it is, $1,000 that, or $8 million that will get reimbursed, that amount less, roughly 600,000?
Yeah, we cover the design costs.
Okay, thank you.
The towns are, you get a project approved, where the municipalities are responsible for the 100% of the design. The state dollars, the lot SIP dollars, that can be used to cover 100% of the construction. Unless there's some ineligible, there may be some ineligible expenses, but we may want to, for whatever reason, extend outside of that project or something we want to do while we're disturbing it. The state may come back and say, well, that's not eligible. But this started off as a straightforward road reconstruction project, really just kind of working within the, reconstructing the road, adjusting some curve elevation, some transitions, some crosswalk work, you may recall. As when we brought on the consultant who has some experience with this program, and they were doing the survey work and looking at the conditions, they said we can actually address even to a greater extent the sidewalk, because there's a lot of transitions and slopes that don't meet ADA requirements. So under that, that's why there was such a significant increase in the scope of this project, because we found out that these dollars, this program will pay for those improvements as well. So we went back to the COG, requested this to expand the scope of the project, and we received them to fund this overall project.
Thank you.
So it's a
Anyone
great
else?
opportunity to leverage the $8 million.
Representative Black?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the school. I mean, we're authorizing borrowing. You know, we may get reimbursed by some things. The lot SIP program, if that's what this is, that's borrowed state money, by the way. We switched from pay as we go to borrowing that local transportation infrastructure program, something like that, lot SIP. So that's borrowed now, where it used to be appropriated annually. In a budget crisis, they changed at the state level to borrowing it. As far as the ADA is concerned, the law is that if you resurface a road, you're required to bring the sidewalks up to ADA compliance. If you're filling potholes or other maintenance, you are not required to bring the sidewalks up to ADA compliance. But this is a complete rebuilding. There's no gray area here. If we weren't bringing things up to the current ADA standards, then we'd be liable to a lawsuit by somebody saying we have to do that. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Hearing none, all those in favor of this amending resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution passes. Moving on to item 12, to consider and act upon the following proposed resolution. Resolution authorizing an appropriation of $325,000 for the police headquarters renovation project and the financing of said appropriations by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town of Branford and notes in anticipation of such bonds in the amount not to exceed $325,000. Therefore, Representative Conklin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I guess I need to move that we waive the reading of the full resolution. So I'll make that motion first.
Motion on the floor, second by Representative Ingraham to waive the reading of the full resolution. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Go ahead.
The Public Service Committee heard this resolution and the presentation by the police department on February 2nd, and it passed in committee 4-0. This resolution will allow the town to move forward. We have the feasibility study for the renovated police station. This will allow for a more complete design detail and a more complete cost estimate. So again, it passed in committee 4-0, and I would put that in the form of a motion, please.
Motion on the floor, and it's been second to approve this resolution. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Second. Representative Henshaw.
So I have a couple of questions about the project. I have read the feasibility study that was done by Jaconski Humes. I visited, thanks to Representative Toohill, the site, the headquarters, the other day, and we had a very instructive tour from the police department, and I understand both through the feasibility study and a view of the buildings themselves what the challenges are and what needs to be done, and I fully support the fact that this is a good project. It should happen. I think it'll help the police department to function much more efficiently once it's completed. I do have a couple of questions about the process, however. My understanding was that the initial feasibility study, which was cost approximately $33,000, done by Jaconski Humes, that was a project that was done before this current funding, and my understanding is that the Board of Selectmen approved a waiver of the bidding requirements for that contract. I have more questions, so wait a second.
Selectman Cosgrove?
So that's my understanding of the initial funding of the feasibility study. However, this current request, subsequent to that, the public building, my understanding again, is the Public Building Commission sent out an RFP for the construction management services and received 3 proposals, or they interviewed 3. I think they received more. Interviewed 3 and selected Downs to be the CM based on their proposal, and I applaud that selection. I think they're a highly rated firm for CM services, so I have no problem with that selection. The architectural services, which, let me back up. This request includes roughly $31,500 for schematic design for the A&E firm Jaconski Humes, plus $126,000 for design development drawings, again, from Jakunski-Hume's architectural engineering development drawings. And it includes about $43,000 of money from the CM. That's the, if you total those up, that represents what we're authorizing. What I'm missing in this process is how Jakunski-Hume's was selected, and I think they're a fantastic firm. I have no problem with them. I see that they probably are the very best firm to do this job, but I don't see that there was any competitive RFP sent out or competitive bid for it. I don't see that at least up to this point, the Board of Selectmen has waived the requirement to put that out to bid. So do you anticipate taking that step? This whole contract for them alone, I think, is on the order of $600 and some odd thousand from beginning to end for architectural and engineering fees. So it's well above any thresholds.
Sure. So the feasibility study, you may recall, I think it was two budget cycles ago, we actually we had a number of smaller projects related to the police department that were funded that had not moved forward. In reviewing the status of those projects and those accounts, we decided to kind of sweep all those accounts, use those dollars, we put those into the police pension fund, tying it to the police some way. The dollar's supposed to go to a police facility, let's put it in to address another liability. And we bolstered the police pension fund with those dollars. However, we left $75,000 and put it aside for the police department project, knowing that we would want to do this as one project rather than multiple smaller projects. We wanted to make sure if we do a project, or once we get in there, we want to kind of address it for at least a good number of years, because it is a 24/7 facility, 365, and we want to. It is a relatively tight site. There's a lot of activity that happens there. It's not only the police department, but you also have to remember all of our dispatch communications takes place in that building as well. So we want to try to kind of, have one project, and manage it all and then be done with it, so we're not disturbing their operations again. We took that $75,000, which under our ordinance, the town code allows us to engage in architectural services up to $75,000. As I think you just stated, this firm has a very strong record with public safety buildings. This is really their area of expertise. The architect in particular has worked on a number of police stations and other public safety buildings throughout the state of Connecticut, as well as Massachusetts. We brought them in to evaluate and do the feasibility study. We're very pleased with the level of work, the understanding of the department, how it operates, and what they have identified throughout that feasibility process. At that time, a decision was made to perhaps continue the engagement with this firm. We felt that we had a firm that was familiar, again, with not only the requirements for that profession and that activity, but it was very familiar now with our department. So the Board of Selectmen did waive the the advertised bid. We negotiated a proposal. We requested a proposal, reviewed that proposal. I've been had some comments back and forth through our engineering department, as well as been involved. Town attorney has been reviewing the proposal. Building commission to make sure it captured the full scope of what we were looking for, as well as the representatives from the police department. So we feel.
Excuse me, can I just intersect a question? Are you referring to the initial feasibility study, or are you now referring to the full A&E
No, the
services?
feasibility study was paid for.
It was separate.
And separate. That was a separate engagement. That is.
So you're
but
referring to the roughly $700,000?
Yes, so now the proposal that you're referring to.
Was that in fact waived by?
So, yeah, the RTM, the Board of Selectmen last week.
They did waive it?
Waived, yes.
Okay, I didn't understand the agenda.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? No? I know many of the RTM members just took a tour of the facility. If anyone hasn't, and I'm sure if they arrange it with the deputy chief there, Alvarez, to see what we're talking about, that the dire need for the renovation for the police department. Representative Toohill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, there were 2 tours which were organized by John Alves. He's the deputy chief. And there were about 10, 12 RTM people took the tours. And that was the first time that I really been through the building. It's an extensive building. It's large, 2 floors. It's a campus. It's the old police station, right? That was the Harrison Avenue School. It was fixed up at the time that the first selectman was John Sliney. It was then placed in its current location under Judy Gott. There's a great shooting range that we have there on the campus. There's a very tall tower with all the all the antennas up there, which is, I mean, that antenna alone would be very expensive to move or to replace. Personally, I thought the building was in excellent shape. I think that they've taken tremendous care of the building over the years. I mean, everything was clean, everything works. There are problems, I think from the beginning, they've always had problems downstairs on the first floor. For some reason, the floor, tends to be wet at times in places. And I was talking with Representative Riccio before, and he said, look, they've got to get to the bottom of this problem, that we can't spend the money, and then we have the same situation, which is true. So that has to be really, taken care of. But it was a great tour. We presently have 14 jail cells, and it's going to be. They're almost all used for storage. We don't need 14, these days. We were told by John Alves that if we needed to use jail cells, he said that the thing we can always use is East Haven, for example. So the plan is to reduce them, the count of the jail cells from 14 down to 5, I think he said. So that's basically it. I mean, it's and also it's in a great spot. It's right in the center of town, which I think is important. Thank you.
Selectman Cosgrove?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I believe when Representative Henschel was asking the question, he said, did we waive for the full amount? And the actual action by the Board of Selectmen was not to exceed $160,000. It was to bring through design development phase. And at that point, we come before the appropriating bodies, RTM, Board of Finance, RTM, and we feel at that point we'll have a number for the entire project that would be comfortable with. So it was through design development.
Representative Brooks?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to anybody that could answer this question. When the project is designed and whatever, will there be, obviously it'll come before the RTM, will there be options, or will it be, this is the project, either you say yes to whatever millions of dollars or no? Like is that how that'll work?
I believe so, Russ. Selectman Cosgrove?
Yeah, I think this is a facility that really meets a specific need, right, for the police department and their operations and communications. It is primarily limited to the the bulk of the construction is really limited to the lower level. There are some other improvements, as mentioned, the shooting range, some other mechanical improvements that need to be done, and as well as some space allocation on the main floor. You know, this isn't a complete rebuild and kind of looking to you know, try to accommodate something else that we haven't had before. It's really to address the needs of the department. So I think the building committee, as well represented, we have some representation of the police department on that committee. I think they will, you know, come forward with a project that meets their needs for today and for the future. So it will be, you know, one project. It's not a, you know, pick this A or B. They'll come forward with the project. But I just also want to state that the purpose of bringing the CM on this stage was to kind of work with the architect in terms of the phasing plan, constructability, value engineering if needed. So when it comes before for the full appropriation for the project, that we feel like there's a number there that we feel confident will be carried through construction and bidding and construction. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Mr. Moderator,
Representative Everson?
could I ask a point of clarification through you to the first selectman? Sorry, getting your steps in tonight, Jamie. The architect's fees, if they're going to be $650,000, $800,000, when is that appropriation coming before us? How is that money being allocated?
So that'll come forward with for the full, when we seek the appropriation for the full project. So we're just bringing this project, we're just engaging through design development. And at that point, we feel we'll be confident with our number to come forward and, you know, have the appropriating bodies consider and, if appropriate, approve the request for the full project. And the architect will then carry the project through construction documents, through bidding, and oversight of the project.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the RTM? Okay, if not, we're ready to vote on this. All those in favor of this appropriation signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? This authorization passes. Moving on to item 13, to hear a presentation during the funding strategy for the solid waste sinking fund and appropriate and approve the following transfer and resolutions. Resolution for creating the solid waste and recycling equipment fund. Resolved, the Board of Finance authorizes and recommends to the RTM an establishment of the solid waste and recycling equipment fund sinking fund. ARPA fund appropriation. Resolved that the Board of Finance recommends to the RTM an increase in the fiscal 2023 ARPA fund budget from $2,727,000 to $3,652,000. This appropriation will be used to fund a single-stream recycling bins and will be funded through the appropriation from the ARPA fund balance. Increase the fund balance by $925,000. Increase the recycling of solid waste equipment by $925,000. Capital fund transfer. From transfer stations improvements, $323,101. Transfer to Fund 721, $323,101. From general fund contingency transfer. From contingency, $100,000 to transfer Fund 721, $100,000. And this was Ways and Means, Representative Healy.
Correct, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So yes, we heard this last Wednesday as well. And I'd like you to almost view this as two separate entities because whereas we know we cannot use ARPA funds to fund a sinking fund, but yet we are creating a sinking fund. The first part of it is going to be the purchase of new recycling bins because as many of you are aware, we've been talking about the garbage issue that we have in town for quite some time. We're one of the few on the shoreline still just doing multi-stream garbage. Pickup, we need to move to single stream. It's going to be just more cost effective for the town. So we're looking at having new bins coming in. That's what the purchase is for. One person within the truck who does not get out lifts the bins, does it like I'm sure you've seen other towns and whatnot have. We have a possibility of 3 sizes of cans that we're going to be purchasing. I just know of 2 of the sizes at 65 to 95 gallons each. We're going to have 2 cans. One are going to be for your garbage, one's going to be for all other recycling materials. Okay? Hopefully this again becomes more cost effective than how we've been trying to do our garbage and recycling. Okay. So the first part of it again is going to be the purchase of these garbage cans. These bins basically last 6-7 years. And so that's where we're purchasing the first part. That's the $925,000 from the ARPA funds. Once again, our federal tax dollars. The second is going to be the creation of the sinking fund. We're going to be taking money from the Transfer Station Improvements Fund and contingency. Okay? This and putting that money aside like we do for the ambulances, the fire trucks, everything else, being able to put money aside for not just future garbage cans, but also other things that occur at the transfer station. Now, there have been questions before as far as, well, what improvements are we basically stealing from that we're putting this money aside into this new sinking fund from the transfer station? But that's not the case. There was no set projects that we're delaying in doing this action. This money was set aside in this fund after we had the breakdown from the multidisciplinary town part for the Bristol component that I think was before my time. So we received funds from that breakup of that we gave it back to Bristol, and the monies went into this fund. So that's why we're just transferring those funds into basically a newly named fund, our sinking fund for the transfer station, of which we'll purchase future cans out of. It went through committee and it passed 4-0 with 1 abstention. And I'd like to see that passed here, and I put its passage in the form of that motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor for this item. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Toohill.
Mike. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Just want to recognize and thank volunteer Paul Munoz. He's the chairman of the Solid Waste Commission. He spent many volunteer hours on this project, doing the studying, getting all the facts and figures, doing the research. And also on that same committee is former Representative Richard Atro, who's also doing a great job. So, I mean, this is I think that what's envisioned, what's before the RTM tonight, it's the status quo. All the towns, that I've seen around us, I mean, they all do this now. So, and it's cheaper for the town. The old days, the town used to get hundreds of thousands of dollars for the cardboard, for the plastic, for the glass, and the whole thing has changed now. I mean, we have to actually pay for some of those to be taken away. So this is the way to go. Thank you.
Representative Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just wanted to rise, and Chairman Conklin in our committee also heard this item. I think he may have a report to give on this vote, if anything that happened, but we did take an action on it. Do you mind if I do it? I can do it. I have the mic already. So we met sometime last week. We voted in favor of this after some discussion with Paul Munoz, and Stockman Cosgrove was there. We are actually apparently one of, if not the last town in Connecticut to switch to the mechanized pickup of waste. It does seem like there's going to be cost savings for the town. And the other thing that I think is important to note is the last time that we went out to bid for the pickups with the several people going behind the truck, there was only 1 bid on that service. So this way, we actually received, I think, at least 4 bids for the project. So at least we're getting more choices as a town as well. The Public Services Committee voted 4-0 in favor of this at our meeting sometime last week. So I'll add that to Representative Healy's. February 2nd, like he said.
Very good.
So thank you.
I have one thing to say.
Go ahead, Representative Reese.
So I'm totally in favor of this project. I think it's great that we're catching up with the rest of the state. I'm just curious, what is going to happen to the approximately 60,000 blue bins that we currently have in Branford? Like, can we pave the roads with them, or? Hopefully they can be recycled.
And sent to the Arts and Crafts Center.
I'm gonna keep
You
on.
want to put your beverages in there or
They're used for
something.
many different things.
Ones that, especially the ones that aren't cracked.
I'm extremely concerned with that.
Representative
It's a
Brooks.
lot of plastic. Oh, a skate park.
Those are waste.
At the risk of getting yelled at by an RTM member, part of me wants to vote against this out of principle. I know it's cost effective. I know we're the last town that's not doing this, but I feel like as a society, this is where the principles get me in trouble. We're moving away from recycling, and it's the wrong direction to be going. So now we're going to commit to be less recycling friendly with this, and I just feel like this is not the direction as a society we want to go. So I'll probably abstain just because, but it's not any fault of the town, it's not any fault of anybody. It's just the way it is. I talked to the guys there, I understand what's going on. It's just, it almost breaks my heart that we have to make this choice.
Representative Black?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to respond. I mean, there's people that are fanatical about sorting their garbage, and that's definitely the right way to do it, to make it more recyclable and keep more value to it. We've had problems with the staff, and you know, as you know, there's a labor shortage, so we really only have one choice with the current vendor. They have to hire whoever's willing to do it, and if they're not careful about throwing everything in, I know, you know, my fellow 3rd District RTM members have seen the posting where they come through. You know, I've talked to Paul Muniz about it. The company that does the hauling doesn't keep their equipment up. We're the only ones that has the 2-bin trucks. You know, they're seeing this going out, so they don't want to invest in maintaining that. So they send out single-bin trucks anyway. So our constituents that are carefully recycling, it all comes to naught anyway. And then there's a lot of transients in town. I've had relatives, you know, younger people, you know, I yell at them. I give them the little the Earth Matters brochure to read. I mean, what I haven't done is made a TikTok video, which I think is the way to communicate with them. You know, because I yell at them again, and you know, maybe if I get, you know, some young guy like Mr. Sullivan there, he can help me, you know, communicate. But you know, most people, unfortunately, because we're the only ones that are doing this, they just aren't used to sorting. So you've got a big divide amongst residents. You know, those of us who've been here a long time that are fanatical about it, and then you've got people throwing everything in. You know, I take my cardboard down to the transfer station and put it in, because I know we do get money for the cardboard. I don't want, and same thing with my paper, and I know that the guys sometimes mix them all together, but you know, that's me. Most people don't do it. So unfortunately, because of the way the rest of the state has gone and the state of the markets for labor, amongst other things, and for pickup, this is the way we have to go. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the this item on item number 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Abstentions?
Abstain.
There was an abstention somewhere. Oh, Representative Brooks, okay. Okay, moving on to item 14. Well, you weren't sure which you were going to do. Okay. Moving on to item 14, and any of the business to come before the RTM?
Motion to adjourn.
Come forward.
Not me.
Good evening, folks. Greg Gerolman, Pheasant Lane. I'm here unsurprisingly to talk about an education matter. I just wanted to, certainly from the last time I was here, a lot has happened. A lot good, a lot bad. That's kind of the way things roll. And again, let me start out by saying that I know that something that is often discussed and often mentioned is that the RTM does not have direct control over district matters and district leadership and the Board of Ed. And believe me, I get that, okay? I understand. My opinion is that while that's 100% true, that doesn't mean that this body has no authority and no influence about what happens, especially as it relates to, to a budget that's approximately half of the town's budget. First thing I'd like to mention is that, there was recently a report that was put out as part of the ongoing search for a new superintendent. And it's been out for a little while. I'm sure by now having a committee that is devoted entirely to education and Board of Ed and the district, I'm sure you all have seen it. It is 60 pages long. It starts out with a summary. It is available on the website. And in short, really what it does is that it gives a summary of all of the things that one hears about the district through the years, and then goes into great detail about the different people that have been interviewed as a result of this. It was presented to the board, it was presented to the superintendent and some of the people. I saw the list of the people that were interviewed, and some of the people are in this room, and thank you very much to the folks that were interviewed and did sit down with Bob Ferguson. I mean, it's not good, okay? As bad as I thought that it was going to be, and suffice it to say, I did not think that this was going to be a glowing report. It struck me in terms of the consistency, the depth, and the rawness of what's been going on and for how long it's been going on. And, when you look at this, you would think, if one didn't know any better, you would think that we're talking about a superintendent that's been here for a few years, right? Maybe he's had a cup of coffee here and he's on his way out. But the gentleman, this superintendent, has been here for over a dozen years. And this is not only something that is an unfavorable look for the district, for sure, and it is a colossal failure on the Board of Ed, okay? But at the same time, for everybody that has sat around and let this happen, I mean, this is really not good. And it's a learning opportunity, and that's really why I'm here, is that, okay, this happened, this is horrible. Hopefully there's a great solution just around the corner in terms of the search going on. But my hope is that at least we could learn from this. I mean, I think back to, one thing where I remember sitting down with the chairman of the RTM Education Subcommittee, and this was in February of 2021 at the Parthenon Diner. And the chairman said to me, now again, February 2021, Greg, your voice is pretty much the loudest voice and really the only voice that's sharing concerns about our district and our Board of Education. Now, that's February 2021. When you look at the 60-page document, and I'm glad I forget what I read in high school, if it was the Iliad or the Odyssey, okay? But I'm glad that I read one of those, okay, for the 60 pages. And it's going to go into great depth about all the stuff that we already know. There's no discovery here, but there is massive verification. And what I'd like to suggest is, A, we learn about it. We use it as a learning opportunity going forward. And don't repeat the same dysfunction
So
that
Mr.
arguably, I'm closing.
Mr. DeRome, may I interrupt you? Are you talking about the Board of Education and the superintendent? This is not relevant to the RTM.
Yes, it is.
I think we went through this once
I'm
before. Have you
yeah,
gone to the Board of Education? Have you presented this at their meetings?
Dennis, can you give me a minute, please? Thank you.
Well,
So what I'm suggesting is for the future, that there needs to be a different level of oversight to the extent that there is oversight. I mean, the fact that you all don't have absolute authority doesn't mean you have no skin in the game, because you do. And you don't even do that, or haven't done that, with regard to the budget. And the budget is the only budget in town that's not a line item expense-based budget. So what I'm saying is one of two things, as a suggestion, but something needs to be done different going forward. Number one, somebody needs to have more, maybe out of 30 RTM members, maybe there's one person that just does education, okay? Because this is 50% of our budget. Or the second is, maybe instead of 30, maybe 31 on the RTM, where that 31st person is only an education, because again, we're talking about $60 million here. I mean, or any other mechanism by which this kind of show here is avoided, because what I'm afraid is that if we don't learn something from this, we are condemned to repeat it, and that would be an even greater tragedy, okay? So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and if anybody would like a copy of this, I'm sure you all have it though, right? Because it's been out there for a while, but in case somebody wants my copy, they're welcome to it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and have a good evening.
Any other business to come before the RTM? Representative Riccio?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to just respond to Greg. Greg, I'm not familiar with the document. I will promise you that I will. I am not familiar with the document.
Really? Okay.
I will promise you that I will look into, read it and better understand, what you're getting at. So, the comment I think you made was, it sounded as if, as a body, we haven't done anything about it. And I don't know what you're talking about, but I can tell you, for my own self, being on this body for, I think this is my 13th year, probably half of those years, I didn't vote or support the Board of Education budget because I didn't agree with the direction that the Board of Education and the school system was headed. And many, many times I've gone up here and talked about the statistics and where our town, where our school system is rated compared to other towns. So just to let you know that I've kept a watchful eye on it. But again, I'm not on that committee. I'm on another committee. So, I'm just one voice. So, just one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business to come before the RTM? Hearing none, is there, do I entertain a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Who said that?
Who said that? Representative Anderson, who seconded it? Representative Black, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.